It was a lemony morning in Brightbridge. Sunlight made the cobblestones glow like warm coins. Shop windows wore ribbons. The air smelled of toasted bread and rain-soft paper. Pip Nimbus was at his little workbench, humming the way he hummed when he thought. His belt of small pockets jingled as he reached for a tiny spring. He always made polite, silly things, like a toothbrush that sang lullabies. And today, he was fixing a squeaky scooter. Then, boing! A delivery crate popped open across the street. Out hopped a polka dot hat with a giggle. The hat flopped, flipped, and bounced before anyone could say hello. It was a hat that clearly liked trouble. It wiggled its brim and pointed its crown at a bakery sign. First, it did something small and very funny. The bakery's sign read, "Warm Jam," and the hat wiggled. Suddenly, the letters jumbled, and the sign politely read, "Jam warm?" People blinked and laughed. Then the hat hopped over to a clothesline and swapped a striped sock for Mrs. Finch's pair with Mr. Boodle's polka dot sock. Mrs. Finch opened a drawer at home and found a lonely polka dot. Mr. Boodle laughed so hard, his hat nearly fell off. Ironic. Pip heard the giggles and the squeaks and dashed out, his glasses sliding down his nose. He loved a tiny adventure, especially when something needed fixing. He saw the hat bounce away, leaving little confetti of paper and paint. "Ooh!" Pip said, and chased after it. The hat led him into the patchwork parade practice. People waved umbrellas of every color like flags. The umbrellas marched between the lampposts, bobbing up and down. The hat zipped between umbrella handles like a tiny kite. Pip bobbed too, chasing and tripping over an umbrella tip. Whoops! And then laughing as an umbrella caught him and twirled him gently back up. Next came the pond, with 100 rubber ducks. The ducks drummed gentle splashes. The hat leaped onto the biggest rubber duck, and the flock of ducks sputtered in surprise. Quack, quack, wobble! The hat rode them like a pirate on a bouncy sea. Pip waded in, trying not to splash too many ducks, and blew on a whistle he kept in a pocket. The sound made the ducks bob in circles, and the hat nearly toppled. But with a quick flip, it somersaulted off and vanished down a narrow alley. The alley smelled of paint and paper. Murals smiled from the walls. Then, very odd and very funny, the murals began to rearrange themselves. A painted dog walked up to a painted lamppost, then hopped onto a painted scooter. The hat slid between a painted cat's whiskers and popped out wearing the cat's painted bow. It even mimicked a pigeon for a moment. Coo, coo! Dropping a feather that looked suspiciously like a comma. Pip laughed until his cheeks ached. He reached for the hat, but the hat ducked, rolled into a paint bucket, and splattered tiny polka dots on a passing paperboy. The hat was full of tricks. It rode a lemonade cart like a jolly captain, steering with a lemon slice. Then it hid inside a paint bucket and painted little polka dots on the cobbles. Once it puffed up its crown and strutted like a pigeon on a fence, bobbing and picking at imaginary seeds until a real pigeon shook its head and flew away in comic disgust. All morning, the hat kept escaping in the silliest ways. It pulled a jam jar label over its eyes and tiptoed like a mouse. It hopped into a balloon and floated past the bakery, tugging on a ribbon like a kite. Brightbridge felt full of giggles and tiny surprises. Some people were puzzled. Most people were delighted. At last, the hat made a big leap and flew toward the parade grounds. It flung itself high and got tangled in the rainbow bunting that swung above the square. Oh dear! The bunting flapped and tickled the bunting on the other side, and the polka dot hat dangled like a bright fruit, wobbling in the wind. Pip looked up. The hat was caught, and the parade would start in just a few minutes. He could have shouted for help, but Pip had an idea. He hummed a little tune and rummaged through his belt of pockets. He found a flattened umbrella, a yellow kite that had lost half its string, an old squeaky wheel, and a teal ribbon. He tied them together with careful knots and a polite bow. The neighbors came running, curious and smiling. Can you hold the string?" Pip asked Mrs. Finch, who always smelled like warm bread. "Will you open your umbrella wide?" asked the baker, flour on her apron. The children blew bubbles to make the bunting wobble softly. A child with a tiny drum tapped a gentle beat, and someone else handed Pip a brass bell for luck. Pip clipped his gadget to a scooter and set the kite on top. It looked ridiculous. Part kite, part scooter, part very determined idea. He pedaled a little, then the neighbors all pulled together. Umbrellas up, strings steady. The kite lifted, the umbrella made a gentle breeze, and the scooter hummed. Up, up, up it went! Pip's gadget ticked and tooted and politely said, "Hello," as it reached the bunting. With a soft pop of laughter, the bunting shook loose. The hat tumbled free, doing a tiny flip in the air like a dancing popcorn. Pip reached out and caught it with both hands. It giggled once more, softer now, and settled on his head as if it had always meant to be there. The crowd cheered. Confetti floated down like small bright leaves. The bakery handed out jam tarts. The paint from the alley had added cheerful dots to the parade flags. The hat's owner, a gentle hat maker from down the lane, hugged the hat like a lost friend and thanked everyone with a cup of lemon tea. Brightbridge learned something that day. A surprising tumble or a polka dot mishap could startle a morning, but it could also make the whole town laugh and work together. Pip wiped his hands on his vest, his glasses a bit crooked, and felt very pleased. His small, silly gadget and the neighbor's big kindness had fixed the muddle with giggles and tidy hearts. Surprises can make a day brighter when people help each other with kindness and laughter. Small inventions and big kindness often fix most muddles, especially when everyone shares a smile.